Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog, episode 43. Before we get into the poker, just a couple quick announcements I want to go over. The first one is the channel hit a milestone last week. We've reached 1,000 subscribers. Now, for a guy that had no audience 14 months ago, 1,000 seemed like an almost impossible number to get to, but we've reached it, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank not only all of the new viewers who have come over from seeing my YouTube shorts recently, but to all of you who have been with me since the very beginning and helped keep me going through this. I'm really excited to see what's next for the channel. The second announcement, well, this is an exciting one. I'll be co-hosting my first meetup game on Saturday, August 20th at 1 p.m. alongside Kyle Fischel at Orange City Racing and Card Club. We're gonna run a 1-3 no limit. The buy-in is $200 to $500, and they're gonna do a $10 bomb pot every dealer change. So this is really exciting, and I'm super excited to have Orange City behind me and Kyle in this process and running the game and promoting it. And I'm super grateful to Kyle for allowing me to be part of something that he normally does on his own. So this is super exciting. Saturday, August 20th at 1 p.m. The session of poker you're gonna see today is from a home game. It's a bunch of my friends from episode 26 and a couple new faces as well. Now, I've noticed on YouTube Shorts I've had some criticism over the size of the game I'm playing. It's a 25-50 cent game, and I'll just remind you guys that these are my friends. They're all super recreational players, and they're just looking to help me create content and also have a chance to be on the vlog. So if this isn't really your style, don't worry. I'll be back at 1-2 next week. I hope to see as many of you as I can on August 20th. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. Let me set things up for you real quick. We're starting the game five-handed. In seat 1 is our host, Biggins, a good friend of mine. In seat 2 is Ricky, aka Dick Richardson, a wild gambler, always looking to mix it up. I am in seat 3. Over in seat 5 is Biggins' buddy Quinn. I've only played cards with him one time, but seems to understand the game well enough. And in seat 6 is Ashton, my buddy Porter's son. We wanted to invite him to the game this time and let him play a little bit before he takes off and goes to college up in Georgia. So we're starting five-handed here. The second hand of the night, we're on the button and we look down at pocket jacks. Biggins in +1 is going to open things up for $1.50. It folds to me and I put in the 3-bet to $4.50. It folds all the way back around to Biggins, who calls, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is Jack 5-7 with 2 clubs, so I flop top set here. Biggins checks it over to me, and I down bet to $3.50. Biggins then raises to $8. Now, at a casino or a card room, I probably flat here, but knowing that no one respects each other here at this game, I know I can get called a little bit lighter, so I put in another 3-bet, and I size up to $22. Biggins doesn't take too long to call, so we're off to a turn. The turn is a 9 of spades. This hand's going really well. And things get even better when Biggins jams all in for 33 total. Obviously, I snap it off here. I roll my hand over and we're off to a river.
Holy shit. I have a flush.
I have a full house.
Oh, in the ass.
Yeah.
Make sure you unmute that.
He thought that full house was good. It was the only.
You still had 2 1/4 from the last.
So as you can see, the river is a 9 of clubs. It brings in the flush, but it pairs the board. 2 hands in, and we have a full double up. Shortly after this, our buddy Javi arrives, and he sits down in the number 7 seat. 6-handed now, we're in the small blind, and we look down at 5-6 offsuit. It folds all the way around to the button, who decides to just limp. So when the action's on me, I bump it up to $2. The button is the only caller, so we're off to a flop out of position heads up. The flop is Ace 8-5 with 2 hearts, and the action will check through on this card, so we'll see a turn for free. The turn is a Queen of Spades, and it brings on a second flush draw, but once again the action checks through, so we're off to the river. The river is an 8 of diamonds, it pairs the board, and both flush draws miss here. I check, and Ricky on the button bets out for $3.
You sucker. You don't have none of that. This mother.
Obviously, I'm not in love with the spot, but it's early and it's a good price to pay to get some information, so I make the call. He says he got none of it, and I show my hand and I win. Worth the risk to get a little bit of info. Interesting spot here where we jump in on at the river. On a jack high board where the flush draw missed, there's about $70 in the middle, and Biggins is jammed for his remaining 35. Action is on Ricky, and he's been in the tank a while. Long enough for me to realize something was happening and to start recording. Ricky eventually makes the call, and Biggins flips over ace-king of clubs for a missed flush draw. Ricky shows king-10 offsuit. Ricky is a dangerous guy when you give him chips, and now he has a bunch of them. For those keeping track at home, Biggins is now into the game for $180. Not too long after that, our good buddy Masters shows up, and he's seated directly to my left. I've known Masters a long time. He's a character, and he's a lot of fun to play with. We're in the hijack, and we look down at King Queen of Hearts. We see a call from +2 before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to 250. The button and +2 both make the call, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is deuce 7-9 with 2 hearts, so I flopped a flush draw here. The action checks to me, and I bet 650, about a pot-sized bet. I'm doing this so if I get called, I can make a play on the turn, putting others in an all-in or fold type situation. However, it doesn't come to that as everybody folds. Another interesting spot here is Ashton has jammed all in on the turn on a king-high board. Ricky shows us that he has ace-king of diamonds, and he's just absolutely convinced that Ashton has a set. After a full 2 minutes of tanking, Ricky actually lays it down.
Oh my god, please show a bluff. Please show a bluff.
Oh, he does show a bluff.
Worse.
Ashton then shows king-jack off for a worse top pair. Congrats, Ashton. You made the vlog. This is a sick hand. There's an under-the-gun straddle. We're in the big blind, and we look down at king-3 offsuit. We see calls from Ashton in early position and Biggins on the button. I complete as well, and then Masters in the straddle bumps it up to $2. A min click. We have a saying.
Many raises get many calls.
And it rings true as all 3 of us make the call. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is king-king-3. Yup, flop the world here. It checks to Biggins on the button, who bets $6. Before I act, Masters begins to make the call, so there's no need to fast play here. I want to let everybody put their money in, so I just make the call. Masters does call, but Ashton folds.
Seems like a bunch of bullshit.
Like a bunch of bullshit.
We're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 4 of spades. It's a great card, bringing in a flush draw. It checks around to Biggins on the button again, who this time bets for $12. Another decision here. I'm now losing to king-4, but that's unlikely, and I have to think that one of these guys has a king, and it's probably better than king-3, so I don't know if I want to flat here and let them catch up. Biggins only has about $20 behind, and Masters has about $40 behind, so I raised to $40. Masters is in the tank, and he says he has a draw.
Thinking about it. I got a nice draw kicking.
What? What
Yeah.
draw?
You know I'm drawing.
Eventually, Masters makes the fold, but Biggins calls. I show my hand, and Biggins says he's drawing dead, and he just shoves the pot my way. For those keeping track at home, Biggins is now into the game for $240. We're on the button, and we look down at 9-10 offsuit. It calls all the way around to me, and so when the action's on me, I bump it up to $3. Masters in the small blind calls, as does Javi in +1. Biggins in the hijack and Ricky in the cutoff also call. We're off to a flop 5 ways. The flop is 3-4-10 rainbow here, so I flopped a marginal top pair. It checks to me, and I continue on for $8.50. If someone's going to draw to a straight or play 2 overs, they're going to have to pay to get there. Masters in the small blind calls, announcing, "You know I love my draws."
You know I love my draws.
There you go.
It folds to Ricky in the cutoff, who also calls, so we're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 7 of hearts, so it brings in a backdoor flush draw, and 5-6 now complete for a straight. It checks to me, and I fire again for $16. Looking back, I wish I had gone a little bit bigger here, as I'm giving Masters better than 3-1 to make the call. And Masters does in fact make the call from the small blind. Ricky gets out of the way, we're off to the river heads up. The river is a king of spades, and it's not a great card as it's an over to my 10, but I can't imagine how Masters would have gotten here with a king unless it's king-king specifically. Masters checks to me, and he does have the ability to slow play something like a set. And while I have a blocker to 10s, I don't directly block pocket 3s, pocket 4s, or pocket 7s. And I think if I bet, I'm only going to get called by a better hand, so I check. I announce my hand.
I'll check it. I have a 10. Is that good?
10?
Yeah.
All that betting for a 10?
Yeah.
For a fucking 10, all that.
Is it good?
It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
You bet your ass.
Fucking sucker.
And it's good, and I'm sitting pretty. There's a straddle from under the gun. We're in the cutoff, and we look down at ace-9 of hearts. My notes are a little bit fuzzy here, but it looks like we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 10-6-9, so I flop middle pair here with the gut shot straight draw and the backdoor flush draw. It checks to me, and I fire off for 350 with my pair plus draw. Masters makes the call, Ashton folds, but Javi also calls, so we're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 7 of hearts, so it puts a heart draw on the board now. It's a great card for me, giving me so much more equity. Javi checks it over to me, and I decide to go ahead and check as Masters is short stacked. And even if he checks, I don't mind a free river as there's so many cards that can help me. Masters decides checking is stupid though, and he jams all in for 1125.
Don't think twice!
Javi folds and I call him off. Masters shows 6-4 for a worse pair and a different flush draw, so my pair is stronger than I thought, but diamonds are bad. The river is an 8 of clubs, so I avoided the diamonds, but it puts us straight on the board, and Masters and I end up chopping.
We do split. Wow. Fucking A.
We're in +1 this time when we look down at pocket 9s. It folds to me, and I bump it up to 250. Masters in the hijack calls, Quinn in the cutoff calls, Ashton on the button calls, Javi in the small blind folds, but Biggins in the big blind calls, so we're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is ace-6-4 with 2 diamonds. It checks over to Ashton on the button who bets $6. Biggins in the big blind then flats, so I decide to go ahead and flat as well and see what develops. Everybody else folds. We're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 7 of clubs, so a pretty safe card for me. It checks over to Ashton on the button who this time bets $15. Once again, Biggins flats here. The action's on me, and it's $15 to win about 55, so I'm getting almost 4-1, but at this point, one of these nits has to have an ace, so I kind of reluctantly make the fold. The river is a 6 of hearts, Biggins checks, and Ashton fires for $27 and is immediately jammed on by Biggins. Ashton only has about $5 left, so he's pot committed and he calls. Biggins flips over 10-6 for a river trips, and Ashton shows ace-5 for 2 pair. Biggins will take this one. We're in the small blind this time, and we look down at queen-8 of clubs. We see calls from under the gun and +1 before it folds to me. I complete, and Masters in the big blind checks. We're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 7-5-4 with 2 clubs, so I flop myself a flush draw here and a gut shot straight draw. It checks to Ashton and +1 who bets $250. The action's now on me, and I decide to bump it up to $750. I want to put pressure on weaker clubs and build a pot in case I hit here. Ashton and +1 is the only caller, so we're off to a turn heads up. The turn is a jack of clubs, so we've gotten there. I check, looking for Ashton to take the bait and bet, but he actually checks behind. The river is a 9 of hearts, shouldn't be much of a scare card. I missed value on the turn, so I have to lay a bet out too good for Ashton to fold to on the river, and I settle on $11. Ashton snaps me off. I roll it over, and I'm surprised how light he called me down. He shows ace-7 for 3rd pair. Even worse, he says ace-high, as if he's calling me down with that. Nice try, Ashton. We're in the hijack this time, and we look down at ace-deuce of hearts. Under the gun and +1 both make the call. When the action gets to me, I bump it up to $2. It folds to Ashton in the small blind who calls. The big blind folds, but Biggins and under the gun and Ricky and +1 both call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is ace-jack-3 with 2 spades, so I flop top pair here, but it's a weak top pair. It checks to Ricky, who bets $5. It's on me, and I don't think there's really much to do here except call, so I do. Ashton folds, but Biggins and under the gun call, so we're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a king of diamonds, and Biggins checks, and I accidentally check out of turn. I don't know how big of a mistake that is at this game with these players, but it does still give some information away. Ricky ends up betting $10, and now it's on me. I do have top pair, but it's the worst top pair possible. There's a chance I'm up against a flush draw, though, and it wouldn't be the nut flush as the ace is actually out there. At best, I feel like I'm hoping for another face card to chop things up, so eventually I make the fold, as does Biggins. We asked Ricky to show the bluff, and he shows a 5 of spades before mucking, so he may have gotten me to lay down the best hand here, but it's okay though. There are way better spots to battle Ricky and get him to put his money in bad. We were in +1 and we look down at pocket 8s. We see a call from Ricky and under the gun. I call as well. Masters and Quinn are also both in before Ashton folds on the button. Ashton, you've got to raise there. It's a limped pot and you have position for the rest of the hand, so you have got to apply pressure in those situations. Javi calls and Biggins checks. We're off to a flop 6 ways. The flop is deuce-deuce-4, so not a bad flop here for 8s. It checks over to me, and so I fire out for 250. It folds to Biggins in the big blind who calls. The action's on Ricky now, and he bumps it up to 750. It's on me, and I like my hand, but it was a limped pot, so I wouldn't put Ricky past having a 2. I call the $5, as does Biggins. We're off to a turn 3 ways.
You suckers.
The turn is a 3 of hearts. Biggins checks, and Ricky fires on this card for $15. Ricky's telling the story that he has a deuce, and the Ricky of old could tell this story with squidoosh, but I actually think he may have it here.
For the Ricky of old, this would have been a snap jam. I've seen virgins looser than this guy, though.
Chasing dreams, man?
Chasing dreams.
Are you chasing dreams with ace deuce suited?
You're chasing dreams.
After some thinking, I eventually end up making the call. There's a straight and a flush draw out there, and if they both brick out, I could in fact have the best hand here. The action's on Biggins, and then he check raises to $45. What? Ricky doesn't take too long, and then he calls. So I can't be good here, but it's $30 to win 130. It's better than 4 to 1.
Wait, yeah.
Get your money in there, Weeks.
That's right.
Go all in.
There's no
That's
way
right.
I'm ahead, though. I can't.
I mean, you gotta videotape this.
You
No,
gotta
but
go
you
all
got
in.
enough money, like.
Doesn't matter. Just go all in.
Yeah, you're getting 3 to 1. 3 to 1.
Yeah, that's right.
Or yeah, all in.
Like,
Push
There's
it.
still
See
there's still a
who's got
card
it.
left too.
It doesn't matter, just go.
Just go all in. You let the chips fall as they may.
Just go, just call.
You're getting menopause already.
My
Rush me on this. This is a big hand.
You want a pot
That's what
now?
she said.
However, I think I'm just chasing dreams at this point, so I make the fold. They'll see a river. The river is a 7 of clubs, so it wouldn't have improved me. Biggins starts to count his chips out, but then he checks. I think he's trying to play some mind games at this point. Ricky jams for about $40 more. Biggins says he feels pot committed and he calls. Biggins rolls over 3-4 for 2 pair, and Ricky shows deuce 5 of clubs for trips. Kind of a nasty turn card there for Biggins. We're straddling from the button and we look down at 10-7 offsuit. We see calls from the small blind, the big blind, and under the gun. It folds to the cutoff who also calls, and I check. We're off to a flop 5 ways. The flop is 3-4-9 all clubs, so I flop myself a flush draw here. It checks to Ashton and under the gun who bets $4. It folds around to me, and I decide to peel one off. The small blind and the big blind both fold. We're off to a turn heads up. The turn is a 10 of diamonds, so it improves me to top pair with a flush draw now. Ashton once again leads out for $7.
Who do you have behind? Oh, yeah, you're all in now.
And he's gonna put you all in. Whatever that is. Alright. Flip your card.
I make the raise. He calls his last 450. He rolls over pocket 9s for top set. Oops. The river is a 5 of hearts, and he wins here. He's been so aggressive tonight that I never saw a set there, but it's okay. Can't win them all, can I? You made the vlog again, buddy. Good job. At home games, things tend to be a little bit more laid back. The drinks start flowing, and this hand is an example of White Claw making all of my decisions for me. We're in +1, and we look down at 7-8 of diamonds. It folds to me, and I make kind of a loose open to $2. I'm at the bottom of my early position opening range, or whatever a real vlogger would say. Quinn in the cutoff is the only caller. Kind of.
Cards are
Oh, you
$2.
just took my 2 cards.
I don't know.
You folded it.
When I was big blind, I couldn't fold.
What are you folding now?
I'd like to like keep my big blind if I couldn't even see my card.
That's why you have to protect your cards so they don't get mucked. We're off to a flop heads up. The flop is Queen 10-6, so I flopped a gut shot straight draw here. I check and Quinn fires out for $2. I think $2 is worth a gut shot call, so I make the call. We're off to the turn. The turn is an 8 of clubs, and for whatever reason, I thought this completed my straight, but as you can see, it clearly doesn't. I check thinking I have the nuts, and Quinn fires off again for $2. Back on me, and I want to squeak some value out of this guy with my imaginary straight, so I Hollywood a little bit, and then I bump it up to $5.50. He checks his cards and decides it's a good price, and he calls. It's now that I've figured out that I don't actually have a straight. The river is a 5 of spades, won't really change anything. I check, and Quinn fires for $10 this time.
You know what's funny is I thought that 8 gave me the straight. It did not.
No, oops.
I tank here for a good minute or so, trying to figure out how badly I've stepped in it. After some thought, I decide on a call. He says he missed and he shows King 7, so we actually win this one. After that win, we've got about $160 in front of us at a 25-50 game. We're in the small blind this time, and we look down at 8-9 offsuit. We see calls from everybody at the table, and I'm asked if we're going to have a family pot, so I just call. Action on Masters in the big blind, and he decides we need to play for an extra $1.
Oh, all right. I'll make it one more $1.
Look at you.
Everybody just make it into
Sucking.
just stay in. Just one more $1 on top
Well,
of it.
that's cool, bro.
Let's just
Not surprisingly, everybody calls. We're having a family pot. The flop is Queen 9-4 with 2 diamonds, so I flop middle pair here, and the action's actually going to check all the way through, so we'll see a free turn. The turn is a king of spades, and it brings in a second flush draw. It checks around to Ashton, the low jack, who bets $3.50. Javi makes the call, and Javi's a pretty straight-up player, so I don't see him doing this with anything less than a queen. Biggins and Ricky fold, and the action's on me. I think about it for a bit, but I fold as well, as do the big blind and under the gun, so they're going to a river heads up. The river is a 5 of clubs, and Ashton and the low jack bets $5, and Javi snaps him off. Ashton rolls over king queen for 2 pair, and Javi shows a queen before he mucks, so Ashton wins this one. We're in the cutoff this time, and once again we look down at pocket jacks. We see a limp from Biggins and +1 before Ricky and the hijack raises to $2. It's on me, and I put in the 3-bet to 7. It folds around to Ashton in the big blind, who ends up making the call. Everybody else folds, so we're off to a flop heads up in position. The flop is 9-7-6 with 2 clubs, so it's a super wet and connected board here. Ashton reaches for chips, but then he decides to check. With so many draws available, I have to bet here, and I'm going to bet big. I make it $16, about the size of the pot. Ashton does not look comfortable here, so now I'm pretty sure I have the best hand. Ashton eventually folds, and I decide to show him, to let him know that he either made a really good fold or a really bad fold. In the final hand of the night, we're straddling from under the gun, and we look down at pocket 5s. It folds around to Quinn and the hijack, who bumps it up to $2. We see a call from Ashton in the cutoff, and it folds around to Biggins in the small blind, who then min-clicks to $4. The big blind folds, and it's on me. I'll go mining for $4. The original raiser and the cutoff also both call, so we're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is deuce 4-6 with 2 diamonds, so I have middle pair and a gut shot straight draw here. Given how the pre-flop action went, it feels like a good flop for me. The small blind leads out here for $6. I could raise with 2 diamonds on the board, but I elect to just go ahead and make the call. Everybody else folds, so we're off to a turn heads up in position. The turn is a jack of spades, so it brings in a second flush draw. Once again, the small blind leads out, but he only makes it $6. Same as the flop. It's $6 to win 22, so I'm getting almost 4 to 1. So with so many draws available, he could easily be on diamonds or on spades or a hand like ace 4. So I make the call. We'll see the river. The river is a 6 of hearts, so all of the draws have bricked out here. Biggins checks it over to me, and I'm probably only getting called by better, so I decide to just check behind. I show my hand and ask if it's good. I see a frustrated tap of the cards on the table before Biggins folds, and I win again. We played about 5 more hands after this before wrapping it up for the night. Pretty happy to book a pretty solid win here. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.